You were never part of this family, Patricia hissed, her perfectly manicured nails drumming against the marble kitchen counter. Victoria comes from a good family. She's the kind of daughter-in-law I always wanted. You were just a mistake my son made. I stood quietly, watching my mother-in-law's satisfaction grow with each moment of my silence. The invitation to my husband's engagement party lay between us on the counter, its gold lettering catching the afternoon light. An engagement party for a man who was still legally married to me. My name is Olivia, and at 29, I was watching my marriage crumble under the weight of my mother-in-law's ambition and my husband's cowardice. James and I had been married for 3 years, but to Patricia, I was always the woman who stole her precious son from his destined path. Victoria's father is a federal judge, Patricia continued, her voice dripping with superiority. What does your family have? A small accounting firm. Please, James needs someone who can elevate his status, not drag him down. I picked up my coffee mug, taking a slow sip while Patricia watched, clearly disappointed by my lack of reaction. She'd expected tears, pleading, maybe even anger. Instead, she got calm acceptance. The engagement party is next month, she said, sliding the invitation closer to me. I trust to make yourself scarce. We wouldn't want any unpleasantness. What Patricia didn't know was that I'd seen this coming for months. The late-night calls James took in his study. The mysterious business meetings that never appeared in his calendar. The way he'd started moving money between accounts. I wasn't just James's wife. I was a certified forensic accountant. Numbers told stories, and his numbers had been telling quite a tale. Of course, I replied, standing up. I'll be gone by tonight. Patricia's triumphant smile faltered slightly. This was too easy, and she knew it. Just like that? No fighting for your marriage? I gathered my purse, letting a small smile play across my lips. You're right, Patricia. I was never part of this family. Why fight for something that was never real? As I walked toward the door, she called after me. James wants an amicable separation. No lawyers, no messy paperwork. Just sign the papers he'll send you next week. I turned back one last time. Tell James not to worry. I'll handle everything. That evening, as I packed my belongings from the house James and I had shared, I thought about the past 3 years. I'd loved him truly and deeply, but love wasn't enough when you were fighting against a mother's influence and a man's weakness. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Mom told me you're leaving. It's better this way. Victoria's father can help my career. I hope you understand. We can keep this simple. No need for lawyers. No need for lawyers. Of course that's what they wanted. A quiet exit, a simple erasure of my existence from their lives. They didn't know about the documentation I'd been gathering for months. The records of James's hidden accounts, the texts, the emails. They didn't know about my weekly meetings with my own lawyer, carefully building a case while they thought I was at yoga class. As I loaded the last box into my car, our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, came over. Olivia, dear, are you going somewhere? Just taking some things to storage, I lied smoothly. Redecorating, you know how it is. She nodded, though her eyes showed concern. She'd seen Victoria visiting our house, seen James's late-night returns, noticed the changes before I'd even admitted them to myself. That night, I checked into a small apartment I quietly rented 2 months ago. The lease was under my maiden name, paid for with money from an account Patricia and James knew nothing about. On a kitchen counter, I spread out my documents, bank statements, property deeds, business records. Everything that proved what James and Patricia had been planning, and everything that would protect me when the time came. My phone buzzed again, this time with a message from Patricia. I've already told the country club about James and Victoria's engagement. The papers will be there next week. Sign them quickly, and we can all move on. I smiled, thinking about the carefully organized files on my laptop, the recordings of conversations, the trail of evidence I gathered. Patricia wanted me gone, erased from their lives as if I'd never existed. James wanted a clean break without complications. They would get exactly what they wanted, just not in the way they expected. Opening my laptop, I sent a quick email to my lawyer. It's time. Start with phase 1. The response came within minutes. Everything's ready. Are you sure about this? I looked at the engagement invitation still sitting in my purse, at the photos of James and me still on my phone, at the life I was supposedly leaving behind. Yes, I typed back. Let's show them what no lawyers really means. Patricia thought she'd won, that she'd finally removed the stain from her perfect family portrait. James thought he could simply trade up for a better model. No consequences, no complications. They'd orchestrated my exit so carefully, never suspecting that I'd been orchestrating something of my own. As I got ready for bed in my new apartment, I couldn't help but smile at the irony. They wanted to erase me from their lives, and I was going to help them do exactly that. But erasure works both ways, and they were about to learn that sometimes getting what you want comes with unexpected consequences. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Victoria. I hope there are no hard feelings. James says you understand this is for the best. I didn't reply. There would be time for responses later. For now, I had a plan to set in motion, and the best part was, they'd handed me all the pieces I needed to make it work. Patricia wanted me gone. I'd give her exactly what she wanted, and so much more than she bargained for. A month passed, and Patricia's perfectly planned engagement party was in full swing at the country club. I knew this because Mrs. Thompson, unable to contain her outrage, kept me updated with photos and details. There was James beaming beside Victoria in her designer dress. There was Patricia holding court among her social circle, probably sharing the sanitized version of her son's previous relationship. I watched it all unfold from my laptop screen in my new apartment while having a video call with my lawyer, Sarah. They really went all out, she said, examining the photos. Your mother-in-law even got the governor to attend. Of course she did, I replied, scrolling through the bank statements on my screen. Patricia never does anything small, especially when she's trying to impress Victoria's family. Speaking of impressive, Sarah said, our forensic team finished analyzing those transactions you flagged. The pattern is interesting. Interesting was an understatement. Over the past year, James had been systematically moving money between accounts, creating a complex web of transactions that would have been nearly impossible to trace for someone who didn't specialize in following money trails. He's been preparing for this, I explained, pulling up a particular set of transfers, setting aside funds, creating hidden accounts. They probably thought I wouldn't notice. But they forgot what you do for a living, Sarah smiled. They had indeed. In their rush to erase me, Patricia and James had overlooked one crucial detail. I wasn't just James's wife. I was a forensic accountant who specialized in uncovering financial fraud. Every mysterious transaction, every hidden account, every attempt to shield assets, I documented it all. My phone buzzed with a text from James. The papers are ready. Can we meet tomorrow to sign everything? Perfect timing, Sarah said, watching me read the message. Shall we proceed with phase 2? I nodded, thinking about the carefully crafted plan we'd been executing. They want simple. Let's keep it simple. The next morning, I met James at a quiet cafe of his choosing. He looked nervous, fiddling with his designer watch. A recent gift from Victoria's father, no doubt. You look well, he said awkwardly, sliding a folder across the table. These are just basic separation papers, no complicated legal terms. We both walk away clean. I opened the folder, pretending to review documents I'd already seen. My own legal team had obtained a copy weeks ago through channels James didn't know existed. Everything seems to be in order, I said softly, pulling out my pen. James visibly relaxed. I knew you'd understand, he said, reaching for his coffee. You always were reasonable. That's what I told Victoria. I signed my name with a flourish, then slid the papers back to him. All done. Simple, just like you wanted. He frowned slightly, probably thrown off by my easy compliance. That's it. You don't want to review anything with your lawyer? No lawyers, remember? That's what you and Patricia wanted. James smiled, clearly relieved. Thank you, Olivia. I know this isn't easy, but it's better this way. You'll find someone more suitable. As he gathered the papers, I checked my watch. You should get those filed quickly. I'm sure Patricia is eager to start planning the wedding. He nodded, standing up. She is. The venue's already booked for next month. Victoria's father pulled some strings. How nice, I replied, gathering my things. Oh, and James, you might want to check your email when you get home. He looked confused but didn't ask. We said our goodbyes, and I watched him walk away, clutching his precious papers, having no idea what he just set in motion. Back in my apartment, I opened my laptop and sent a brief message to Sarah. It's done. Start the clock. Within hours, James would discover what no lawyers really meant. The papers he'd had me sign weren't just separation documents, they were my key to executing everything we prepared. My phone rang. Patricia. I let it go to voicemail, then played her message on speaker. How dare you? Her voice crackled with rage. What did you do? James just called me in a panic. Something about accounts being frozen. This isn't what we agreed to. I smiled, thinking about the carefully worded clauses hidden in those simple papers, the ones neither James nor Patricia had bothered to read carefully. They'd been so focused on erasing me quickly and quietly that they'd handed me exactly the tool I needed. Another call came in, Victoria this time. I ignored that one too. Let them all panic together. Sarah called next. It's done, she said. The judge signed off on everything. The freeze is in place. How long before they figure it out? I asked. Given the complexity of what James set up, days, maybe weeks. By then, the audit will be in full swing. I walked to my window, looking out at the city lights. James and Patricia had wanted to erase me, to write me out of their story as if I'd never existed. Instead, they'd given me the perfect opportunity to expose everything they tried to hide. Did you see the guest list from the engagement party? Sarah asked. The governor, 3 state senators, Victoria's father, the federal judge, all witnessing James and Patricia's big announcement. I finished, all about to learn exactly what kind of family they're really dealing with. My phone kept buzzing with messages, from James, from Patricia, from Victoria, even from country club acquaintances probably hoping for gossip. I ignored them all. They'd wanted me gone, erased, forgotten. They were about to learn that sometimes the people you try to erase are the ones who leave the most permanent mark. I opened my laptop one last time that evening, reviewing the documents that would soon become public record. Everything was there. The hidden accounts, the questionable transactions, the carefully constructed facade of wealth that James and Patricia had built. No lawyers, they'd said. They should have hired the best they could find. 3 months after the engagement party, I sat in Sarah's office, watching the chaos unfold on the local news. Prominent family under investigation. The headline read, followed by a photo of James and Patricia leaving the courthouse, their faces hidden behind designer sunglasses. They're calling it one of the biggest financial scandals of the year, Sarah said, muting the TV. The federal investigation has expanded to include Victoria's father. Apparently, he was more involved than anyone suspected. I nodded, thinking about the domino effect that had started with those simple separation papers. The documents I'd signed had triggered an automatic audit, a clause buried in legal language that James hadn't bothered to review. That audit had revealed not just his hidden accounts, but a whole network of questionable transactions involving Victoria's father's court cases. Patricia called again. Sarah mentioned. She's offering a settlement. Wants to make this all go away quietly. I almost laughed. A bit late for quiet, isn't it? The scandal had exploded in exactly the way Patricia had always feared. Her carefully curated social image was in shambles. The country club had suspended their membership. The governor had publicly distanced himself from the family. Victoria's father was facing an ethics investigation. My phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Thompson. You won't believe what happened. Patricia tried to get into the country club for lunch. They turned her away at the door. The mighty had fallen, and they'd orchestrated their own descent. James had attempted to contact me multiple times, his messages evolving from angry accusations to desperate pleas. The last one arrived this morning. Please, Olivia, you have to help me fix this. I'll leave Victoria. We can start over. I know now what really matters. I deleted it without responding. He still didn't get it. This wasn't about revenge or getting him back. This was about consequences, something Patricia had never taught him to face. The FBI wants to interview you again, Sarah said, pulling me from my thoughts. As the whistleblower, your testimony is crucial. I nodded. Schedule it. They should know everything. My phone rang. Victoria. After 3 months of silence, this was her first attempt to contact me. Curious, I answered. How did you know? She asked, her voice small. About the money, about my father's involvement. How long did you know? I'm a forensic accountant, Victoria. Following money trails is what I do. Maybe if you and Patricia hadn't been so busy planning that engagement party, you might have remembered that. There was a long pause. They're saying Dad might go to prison. James too. Actions have consequences, I replied simply, then ended the call. Standing by Sarah's office window, I watched the city go about its business. Somewhere across town, Patricia was probably in her kitchen, wondering how her perfect plans had crumbled. James was likely meeting with lawyers, finally understanding why keeping things simple had been his biggest mistake. "What now?" Sarah asked, joining me at the window. "Now, I focus on my life. I just accepted a position with the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit. They were quite impressed with how I handled this case." Sarah smiled. From unwanted daughter-in-law to federal investigator. Not bad for someone Patricia thought she could erase. That evening, I returned to my apartment, my new home, bought with my own money, free from any connection to James or his family. On my desk sat a framed copy of the simple separation papers that had started it all. A reminder that sometimes the best revenge isn't fighting back, it's letting people trip over their own arrogance. My phone buzzed one last time, Patricia again. I answered, curious about what she could possibly have to say. "You've destroyed this family," she said, her voice thick with tears. "No, Patricia, you did that yourself. I just showed everyone the truth you tried to hide. We were going to give you a generous settlement," she protested. "You could have just taken the money and disappeared." "You wanted to erase me," I replied calmly. "Instead, you erased yourselves." I hung up, feeling a sense of closure. They had wanted a simple ending. No lawyers, no complications, no trace of my existence in their perfect lives. Instead, they got exactly what they deserved: exposure, consequences, and a permanent record of their own choices. As I looked out at the sunset, I thought about how different my life was from what I'd imagined 3 months ago. I wasn't James's forgotten wife or Patricia's discarded daughter-in-law. I was Olivia Stevens, FBI financial crimes investigator, and I had a new life to build. "Get out of my house." Victoria's voice echoed through the marble halls of the mansion, her perfectly manicured finger pointing at the door. I stood there, one hand resting on my 8-month pregnant belly, the other gripping the banister for support. "This isn't your house, Victoria," I said calmly, watching her face turn an interesting shade of red. "And I'm not leaving. My name is Olivia." And at 32, I found myself facing off against my mother-in-law while carrying her grandchild. The same woman who'd welcomed me into the family with fake smiles and backhanded compliments 5 years ago was now trying to throw me out of my own home. "Marcus needs someone younger, someone who understands his needs." Victoria spat, her designer dress rustling as she moved closer. "Emma's already 3 months pregnant, and she's only 24. You're practically ancient." The mention of Emma, my husband's mistress, should have hurt more than it did. But I'd known about her for months, quietly gathering evidence while Marcus thought he was being clever with his late-night business meetings and weekend conferences. "And does Emma know about the prenup?" I asked, watching Victoria's smug expression falter slightly. "Or about the trust fund conditions?" Victoria's eyes narrowed. "What are you talking about? Marcus told me he had that prenup voided months ago." I couldn't help but laugh, the sound echoing off the high ceilings. "Of course he did. Marcus has always been good at telling people what they want to hear, just like he told you this house belongs to him." The front door opened and Marcus walked in, his suit slightly rumpled, Emma clinging to his arm. She was pretty and that young, trying too hard way, her baby bump barely visible under her tight dress. The triumphant smile on her face dimmed when she saw me still standing there. "Mom, I thought you were handling this," Marcus said, not even looking at me. The man I'd loved for 8 years, who'd cried when we first heard our baby's heartbeat, couldn't even meet my eyes. "Oh, she's handling it exactly how I expected," I replied, pulling an envelope from my pocket. "But before anyone else tries to throw me out of my house, you might want to read this." Marcus snatched the envelope, his hands shaking slightly as he pulled out the documents inside. I watched his face pale as he read, Victoria peering over his shoulder. This can't be right," he stammered. "What is it?" Emma asked, her voice high and nervous. "The house," Victoria whispered, her eyes wide with shock. "It's in Olivia's name. Has been since before the marriage." I smiled, remembering the day my grandmother had transferred the property to me. Nana always said a smart woman protects herself. "The prenup you thought you voided? That was a copy. The real one is filed with 3 separate law firms." But the trust fund," Marcus sputtered. "My inheritance is contingent on you staying faithfully married to your first wife until your 10th anniversary," I finished for him. Your father wasn't as trusting as you thought, Marcus. He'd seen too many of his friends' sons waste family fortunes on younger women. Emma's grip on Marcus's arm loosened. You told me you were wealthy, she accused. That we'd live in this mansion after the divorce. He told you what you wanted to hear, I said, almost feeling sorry for her. Almost, just like he told me he was working late all those nights he was with you. Victoria stepped forward, her composure cracking. You planned this. You've been planning this all along. No, Victoria. I planned to build a life with your son. To raise our child in this house. You and Marcus were the ones with plans. I rubbed my belly as the baby kicked, drawing strength from the movement. I just made sure I was protected when those plans came to light. We can figure this out, Marcus said quickly, his eyes darting between me and Emma. We can come to some arrangement. The only arrangement, I cut him off, is that you have exactly 1 hour to pack your things and leave. All of you. The security team has been notified, and they know who owns this house. You can't do this, Victoria shrieked. That's my grandchild. Yes, it is, I agreed. And when this baby arrives, they'll know exactly who stood by them and who tried to throw their pregnant mother out of her own home. Emma was already backing toward the door, her dream of playing Lady of the Manor crumbling before her eyes. Marcus looked lost, probably realizing for the first time that his carefully constructed house of cards was falling apart. 1 hour, I repeated, turning to climb the stairs. After that, the police will be happy to escort you out. This isn't over, Victoria called after me. We'll fight this. I paused at the top of the stairs, looking down at the 3 people who thought they could discard me so easily. You're right, Victoria. It's not over. Because tomorrow, the family lawyer will be delivering some very interesting documents to the trust fund managers. I wonder how they'll feel about Marcus violating every condition his father put in place. The silence that followed was deafening. I walked to my bedroom in my house, and sat in the window seat, watching as Marcus and Emma hurriedly threw bags into his car 30 minutes later. Victoria stood on the driveway, still in shock, probably trying to figure out how her perfect plan had backfired so spectacularly. As they drove away, I felt the baby kick again. Don't worry, little one, I whispered, resting my hand on my belly. Mommy made sure it will be just fine. What they didn't know was that this was just the beginning. Tomorrow, when the trust fund managers received proof of Marcus's infidelity and the pregnancy he conceived while still married to me, the real fallout would begin. Victoria's dreams of her son inheriting control of the family fortune would crumble like a house of cards. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about being prepared and watching as those who underestimated you realize their mistake too late. I picked up my phone and dialed my grandmother's number. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm and knowing. Is it done? She asked. Yes, Nana, I replied, watching the sunset paint the gardens in shades of gold. They're gone. Good girl, she said proudly. Now, shall we discuss what to do with that trust fund once Marcus is officially disinherited? I smiled, thinking of all the plans I had for my child's future. Actually, Nana, I have some ideas about that. The next morning, I sat in my grandmother's sunlit kitchen, watching her prepare her famous chamomile tea. At 75, Nana was still sharp as a tack and twice as cunning. She taught me everything I knew about protecting myself in a world that often underestimated women. James called, she said, sliding a cup towards me. James was the family lawyer, a man who'd watched Marcus's father build his empire and had no patience for entitled sons who thought they could circumvent their father's wishes. The trust fund managers were very interested in the evidence you gathered. I sipped my tea, remembering all the late nights I'd spent documenting Marcus's indiscretions. The hotel receipts, the bank statements showing purchases from luxury boutiques that certainly weren't for me, the time-stamped photos of his not-so-secret meetings with Emma. How did they take it? Let's just say Marcus won't be getting his hands on that money anytime soon. Nana's eyes twinkled. His father's conditions were very specific. Faithfulness until your 10th anniversary wasn't just a suggestion. It was legally binding. My phone buzzed with a text from Victoria. You've ruined everything. Marcus is devastated. How dare you do this to our family? I showed the message to Nana, who snorted. That woman never did understand the meaning of consequences. How's the little one this morning? As if on cue, the baby kicked. Active, I smiled, rubbing my belly. Just like their mother. The doorbell rang, and Nana's housekeeper appeared moments later with an unexpected visitor. Emma. She looked different from yesterday, her carefully maintained facade cracking around the edges. I need to talk to you, she said, wringing her hands. Please. Nana raised an eyebrow but nodded, stepping out to give us privacy. I gestured for Emma to sit. Marcus lied to me, she blurted out, tears welling in her eyes. About everything. The money, the house, his marriage. He told me you were separated, that you were living off his generosity. He said once the baby came, we'd be a real family. I pushed a box of tissues across the table. And now you know the truth. Victoria came to my apartment this morning. Emma continued. She was furious, saying I'd ruined her son's inheritance. She demanded she wanted me to. She broke down, unable to finish. Let me guess, I said, feeling a mix of pity and vindication. She wanted you to get rid of the baby. Emma nodded, her shoulders shaking. She said it would ruin everything, that no one could know. Marcus just stood there, letting her say those horrible things. I thought you loved me. Marcus loves himself, I replied quietly. Everything else is just a means to an end. I don't know what to do, she whispered. I can't raise a baby alone. I lost my job because Victoria told the board I was morally compromised. I studied the young woman before me, seeing past the mistress to someone who'd been manipulated just as much as I had, just in different ways. Do you want this baby? She looked up, surprised by the question. Yes, she said firmly. Whatever else happens, yes. I reached into my bag and pulled out a business card. This is my lawyer's number. She specializes in family law. Call her. Marcus might not want to be a father to your child, but he will be financially responsible. Why are you helping me? Emma asked, genuinely confused. Because my child will have a half-sibling, and I don't believe in punishing children for their parents' mistakes. I handed her another card. This is my number. If Victoria or Marcus threatens you again, call me. After Emma left, Nana returned, looking thoughtful. That was unexpected, she said, refilling our teacups. Life usually is, I replied. Did you know Marcus's father had a second family? That's why he put those conditions in the trust fund. He didn't want his son repeating his mistakes. Nana nodded. History has a way of repeating itself when we don't learn from it. Speaking of which, Victoria's been calling the house all morning, demanding to speak with you. Let her, I said, feeling stronger than I had in months. I have nothing to hide. As if summoned by our conversation, my phone rang, Victoria's number flashing on the screen. I answered, putting it on speaker. How dare you turn that little tramp against us? She hissed. After everything we've done for you. You mean like trying to throw me out of my house while I'm 8 months pregnant? I asked calmly. Or perhaps you mean threatening your unborn grandchild's sibling. That thing is not my grandchild. My grandchild is the one you're carrying. No, Victoria, I said firmly. After yesterday, you've lost the right to claim any connection to my child. As for Emma's baby, they're innocent in all this. Unlike you. We'll fight this, she threatened. Marcus knows people. We'll contest everything. Go ahead, I replied. I'm sure the trust fund managers would love to hear you explain why you think your son deserves to inherit after violating every condition his father put in place. I'm sure the board at Emma's company would be interested in hearing about your threats. Should I continue? The silence on the other end was telling. You've lost, Victoria, I said quietly. The only question now is how much more damage you want to do to your family's reputation before you accept that. She hung up without another word. Nana reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You did good, child. Now, shall we discuss the nursery? That mansion of yours needs some brightening up. I smiled, feeling the weight of the past months lifting. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just about winning. It's about staying true to yourself while watching others reveal who they really are. The baby kicked again, and I knew that whatever came next, we would face it together, stronger for having weathered this storm. Yes, I said to Nana, let's talk about the future. 3 months later, I sat in the hospital room, holding my newborn daughter Lily, while Nana beamed proudly beside me. The delivery had been smooth, and my little girl was perfect, a head full of dark hair and her mother's determination, evident in her strong grip on my finger. The past months had brought changes I never expected. Emma had taken my advice and contacted the lawyer. She was now set up in a comfortable apartment, her prenatal care covered, and a solid support system in place. We weren't friends exactly, but we'd reached an understanding. Our children would be siblings, and that connection deserved respect. Marcus, on the other hand, had spiraled. After the trust fund managers officially revoked his inheritance, he'd moved back in with Victoria, his dreams of luxury living with his young girlfriend shattered. Last I heard, he was working as a junior associate at a small firm, the only place that would hire him after word of his behavior spread through our social circle. A soft knock at the door interrupted my thoughts. It was James, the family lawyer, his eyes twinkling as he looked at Lily. "She's beautiful," he said, then cleared his throat. "I have some papers for you to sign when you're feeling up to it. The trust fund managers have made their final decision." I nodded, having expected this. "What's the verdict?" "Given Marcus's violation of the terms and your grandmother's influence, they've decided to transfer the entire trust to Lily." He smiled. "With you as executor, of course." They felt it was fitting, like father like daughter, but this time in the right hands. Victoria had tried to fight it, of course. She'd hired lawyers, threatened lawsuits, even attempted to claim I had tricked Marcus into violating the trust conditions. But evidence doesn't lie, and her desperate attempts only served to further damage their reputation. "There's something else," James continued, pulling out another envelope. "Emma had her baby last week, a boy. She's named you as godmother." This surprised me. Emma and I had maintained a cordial relationship, but this was unexpected. "Why?" "She said you were the only one who treated her with dignity when everything fell apart," James explained. "She wants her son to have someone like that in his life." Nana squeezed my hand. "Sometimes the family we choose is stronger than the family we're born into." As if to emphasize the point, my phone lit up with a message from Emma, a photo of her son, tiny and perfect, with the caption, "Meet your sister, Lily." I looked down at my daughter, peaceful in my arms, and felt a surge of gratitude. Not for the money or the house or even the satisfaction of seeing justice served, but for the clarity this whole ordeal had brought. I knew now what kind of mother I wanted to be: strong, compassionate, and wise enough to break cycles of toxicity. Victoria had tried one last time to reach out, showing up at the mansion a week before my due date. She'd switched tactics, playing the repentant grandmother, claiming she'd only wanted what was best for her son. "You can't keep me from my grandchild," she pleaded. "No," I'd replied, "your actions did that. But if someday you can prove you've changed, really changed, maybe we can discuss supervised visits. Until then, Lily deserves better than what you did to her mother." Now cradling my daughter in the quiet hospital room, I knew I'd made the right choice. Lily would grow up knowing her worth, understanding that strength comes in many forms, and that sometimes the biggest victories come not from destroying others, but from rising above their attempts to destroy you. Nana took Lily in her arms, humming softly. "You know," she said, "your grandfather would be proud. He built his fortune hoping it would protect his family. Now it finally will." James excused himself, leaving us to our quiet celebration. As the afternoon sun painted the room in warm light, I thought about the future ahead. The mansion would be filled with children's laughter, not just Lily's, but her brother's too when he visited. There would be birthday parties and holidays where both children would be welcomed, where the mistakes of their parents wouldn't shadow their relationships. My phone buzzed one last time, a text from Marcus. "I'm sorry for everything. You deserved better." 5 years too late, but at least he finally learned something. I didn't respond. Some chapters are better left closed. Looking at Lily, I smiled. "Welcome to the world, little one. You're going to change it." And as my daughter gripped my finger with her tiny hand, I knew that sometimes the happy endings we get aren't the ones we planned for. They're better. Because they're earned, shaped by our choices, our strength, and our ability to rise above those who tried to bring us down. Nana was right. The family we choose, the boundaries we set, and the grace we show in victory say more about us than any revenge ever could. Lily would grow up knowing that story, understanding that true strength lies not in power over others, but in remaining true to yourself when others try to break you. And that perhaps was the greatest victory of all.